There we are. This should be live. Let me double check the feed. How have you been?
Good, living.
Yeah, it's been it's been pretty crazy. Oop. Let me see. Yeah. Cool. Uh, we're gonna talk about what you're gonna bring to Fan Expo. Have you set up at a con before this?
No.
Oh, this is gonna be your first one.
Well, I mean, the plan is to table at Fan Expo, but I'm still talking to Jose about it.
Okay.
So,
Oh yeah, well, because it
yeah,
got
this
moved.
would be technically this would be my first.
Okay, so it got moved to June, right? And y'all re-signed.
I don't know yet. I haven't spoken to him about it.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess we'll figure it out. Yeah, this summer's gonna be packed, so you're gonna have your pick. I think. I think there's gonna be a lot of conflict, and so I think people have to choose. So I think the audience is gonna be a little more thin, but we'll see what happens,
Yeah.
right?
hmm
So what were you gonna bring to Fan Expo?
Well, I have a couple of things to bring. Unfortunately, I don't have like prints,
Okay.
prints to bring. But I have a few things, including like some prototype stuff. So my Kickstarter, the Godzilla pins. I was actually asked by a staff member from I think Anime Fest to sign up for another con because I guess their theme was monsters, was kaiju,
Oh, okay.
and they asked me to bring the pins along. But unfortunately, the day they asked me to sign up was like the day before the con,
Oh,
so
wow. Eh,
that
okay.
it didn't end up happening. But that was the plan. So I
Okay.
had those pins that I wanted to bring. And then I have a bunch of other small things like buttons and a few stickers here and there, and then like prototypes of figures I've been sculpting and working on.
That's cool. So I remember looking through a lot of your work, and it's very horror themed. So is that like the genre you like living in?
Yeah, I believe. Well, it's more like
Okay,
creature oriented.
that's
So
cool.
I try to put myself in the like behind the scenes of creature designing and the
Okay.
lore behind creature designing.
So did that come from a lot of stuff you read growing up, watched growing up, just exposed to, or?
Yeah, in a way, because like my uncle and my dad were the ones who like my dad used to play when he got the original PlayStation. He used to play games like Resident Evil,
Oh,
Lara
okay.
Croft. So I used to sit there and watch him play those kinds of games. And then my uncle was watching like horror movies and stuff like that, and all kinds of classic black and white ones.
Oh, cool. So which one like really like resonated with you that you remember pretty clearly, like really enjoying?
Movie?
Yeah.
Um, God, there were several. My dad used to put them on to scare me intentionally
Oh,
because
wow.
I was
Okay.
little, and so there was a. I remember one scene I was always afraid from the Chucky movie series where the kid is walking through the factory and out of nowhere this body comes swinging down and its eyes are hanging out and I, like from then on I hated anything that had to like do with factories. I wanted nothing like
Oh, that's so mean. But I guess it led you to this genre that you fell in love with. Because yeah, a lot of your stuff is. So do you pull a lot from Western stuff, Eastern stuff, kind of all over the place?
yeah, kind of from both. It's
Okay.
well, I try to the thing about me is I try to discover the culture behind things. So like usually if you know like recently I've done more work with the culture behind Shinto, which is specifically the Japanese religion. And everybody knows with the Shinto religion comes the yokai, they're monsters and everything. And the culture behind them, it was funny because when I was in college, we had to take a religion class, and I got stuck with studying Shinto. And so
Oh,
I
right on.
studied the culture behind all the explanation behind all their monsters and their shrines and the creatures behind those.
That's cool. So what? How long was this like assignment or this thing for?
I believe for our quarters, it was like 4 months.
Oh, okay, cool. So you like really dove into it.
hmm
That's cool. So, because I remember you talking to somebody at art club at one of your pieces, and you went pretty deep into like all the levels and all the little things like that. That's really
I
cool.
try to.
Okay, you remember what was that piece about?
Uh, I'm trying to think of. I believe it was one of the characters I had drawn, and he's an oni or a demon of Japanese lore. And I was explaining like where the oni, why the oni has like different colored skin, why does it wear a tiger belt, or why does it have horns? And I figured out that it's not just to make it look creepy, that there's like an explanation as to why this monster has horns and why it wears a animal skin.
Yeah, that's a big key thing when you're developing character stuff, right? It's like diving deep into things. Because I remember my friend used to do these little designs, and he was like, "There's a thing behind his neck that the audience will never see, but I
Hmm.
know it's there, and it drives the character."
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that also like the an example with H.R. Geiger, he's the one who created the aliens from like Alien versus Predator, like everybody knows the xenomorphs. And it explained that his stuff was so successful in being a horror genre because he studied so much into the anatomy of creature design, the anatomy of human anatomy as well, because he incorporated that into some of the xenomorphs. And that's what made them so creepy, is because it was kind of an uncanny valley feeling.
yeah, everything is real, but not quite, and it makes it
Yeah.
very unnerving.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when people try not to do that and then fall in that in that weird uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen? Do you know the band Korn? Like
Yeah.
the Have you seen the lead singer's mic stand?
No, I don't think so.
It's a custom Giger piece.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and apparently
Oh.
they studied how Jonathan Davis sang and how he performed, and they weighted it, and so that way it moves because he moves around a lot, and he like kind of pulls the mic back and forth towards him, so everything is all weighted perfectly to how he performs in particular. But yes, apparently he met with HR and kind of like developed it because he loves the genre, and he loves the style because everyone loves Xenomorphs. But yeah, it's a really neat piece of art.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, just go check it out. I have a couple of his. Used to have a couple of his books. I think they've transitioned out of my library at some point. But yeah, Giger was a big inspiration growing up when I was a kid too. Like I love that particular horror genre. It was nice and creepy. You
Yeah,
know.
that's one way to describe it.
Yeah, there's some good stuff out there. So what have you? So making your enamel pins, what kind of production lessons did you learn?
Um, so like I had plans to make the design into an enamel pin for a really long time when I first put the design out there and discovered people really liked it. And I was like, you know what, this would be cute if I did an enamel pin of it. But I had no knowledge of how like the process of making an enamel pin worked. And so I kind of looked into it of like what needs to be done for the manufacturer to get it done properly. And so it was interesting because the company I went through, of course, is outsourced in China. Because I went through Alibaba,
Oh yeah, yeah.
hmm and I found a company, and I thought it was going to be like a problem because of the language barrier. But surprisingly enough, the people and the person I was talking to like cleared everything up for me. So
That's good.
they're like, "Hey, we need this piece and this resolution. Can you do this for us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I got you." So ended up going back and editing the piece because it was edited for like sticker printing and vinyl printing and stuff. And I sent them that render, and they contacted me back. They're like, "Hey, there's too many details in this space. Can we change it?" And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And they sent it to me. They ended up taking more details out than I liked. So I
Yeah,
took so I took the piece they had edited and I made smaller, like more space for them to be able to fit the enamel and stuff. And then I sent it back to them and they're like, "Yeah, we can do this." And they were like, what I liked about it is I had no knowledge of this. And even I informed them that I had no knowledge of pin making. but they were still like willing to work with me to get it done, to get it
That's
looking good.
cool.
So I learned
Yes,
a lot.
yeah, because the fine detail in enamel pins, you gotta really gotta understand how the file works and how the production works, so you can make your file properly. That's cool. So when you ran your Kickstarter, it got funded fairly quickly, right?
Well, yeah, I was actually very surprised how quickly it was funded.
That's cool. Yeah, because it came in pretty quick. And so when putting together your Kickstarter, what was the process in that?
Um, well, I wanted to be like straightforward. Hey, this is a project I'm wanting to do, but being a small time artist, I don't have the money to do it. But I want to like provide to the fandom, the kaiju fandom. And I saw like I was looking into enamel pins for like the Godzilla, and a lot of them are like, you know, the generic, hey, there's this enamel pin of the costume and stuff. And after I had received feedback from the vinyl stickers I had made of the Godzilla design I did, I decided um, this is the piece, the one piece that I'm going to make into a pin. So I started going through, looking through other Kickstarters, what successful Kickstarters got them kicked off, what drew their audience to them, and what held their audience attention. And so, like, you gotta, it's kind of like when you go to when you table at an artist alley, you kind of have to know what the crowd likes and like what they're fond of, and that's what I kind of played off of. Especially at the time when the new Godzilla movie was coming out, I was like, let me see if I can jump on this bandwagon.
Yeah, it's a fun bandwagon to jump onto.
Uh huh.
Like, who doesn't like Godzilla? You know what I mean? Have you planned? Are you planning more of these guys?
Yeah. Well, yeah. At the moment, I am. I currently have the files set up for the rest of the kaiju designs that I had done.
Okay.
But when I had planned to set it off, this whole coronavirus stuff hit, and so I had to like put it on the
Yeah.
back shelf for a little bit. And I mean, there's still plans to launch that Kickstarter, but at the moment, it's on hold.
Yeah, Jeremy was talking about how a lot of his production is being held up in certain spots, but he seems to be trucking along. He just actually sent me some videos of him putting together some packaging design. So he's chugging along. The audience seems to be okay with the delays because everybody seems to be understand, which is great now. But it's going to take a little bit for everything to get back into motion. But I think a lot of the factors have kicked back up again. So we'll have to see.
Mhm. Yeah, I was my manufacturer for the pins informed me the other day that they're back in production. So
Okay, so yeah, they probably have to go through all their backlog before they can start taking up new orders
yeah,
for now. Okay. So hopefully that'll be soon, right?
hopefully, yeah.
That'd be cool. So are you just doing the kaiju series? Are you doing anything else?
Well, it was funny because after that the Godzilla pins the Kickstarter ended and I sent off all my pins for the donors and stuff. I was actually contacted by like three different people over Kickstarter saying, "Hey, can you do Monster Hunter pins? Can you
Oh,
do designs for like Monster Hunter and whatnot? Can you do designs for this series for pins and whatnot?" And so I've had people approach me to do more designs, and I'm kind of holding off on doing fan art at the moment simply because uh, I had gotten a cease and desist on One Piece
oh yeah,
that I had
yeah,
done. Yeah, and so I kind of told myself, I'm like, I'm going to stop fan art for a little while and focus on more
yeah.
my own stuff.
The original stuff. The fan art gets kind of dicey. I know a lot of companies do a blanket wide cease and desist on certain websites. But it's weird. It's an indication how healthy the IP is. I feel,
Hmm.
because if they really want to crack down on that kind of stuff, they can go hardcore. Because it's
Oh
easy.
yeah.
Just go to any show pretty much, and you can start cracking down on things. But I feel there's a. I like what Funimation did. Funimation says we'll be lax in our copyright, but we will firmly enforce our trademarks. So avoid all the trademark stuff, and then the other things are kind of let slide. As long as it's not like big production. I notice that becomes a big issue when people roll in with crates and crates of merchandise. It's like, oh no, okay, you've gone a little too far. I
Yeah.
think that's why a lot of the fan art stuff, if it's like limited, it gets kind of glossed over because you're not making millions of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, the
Well,
market gets.
that's what confused me about the piece I had made because it had been a piece for the Persona 5 series, and it was just one small keychain because I had looked over on the Etsy website, and there's like people selling multiple keychains of multiple characters, and I simply made one keychain of one character, and it got caught by Sega, and they were like, "Nope, you can't do this," and I'm like, "Okay, cool, I'll take it down."
Yeah, sometimes they'll do a big blanket sweep of a website, and
Hmm.
some companies are a little more firm than others, but it gets dicey, you know, because then you look at original art, and then you look at paintings, and then where does people like Warhol and Liechtenstein fall under? It gets kind of dicey, and I've seen some fine arts that are replicas of paintings or photos and things, but it seems to fly. It gets really, really
Oh yeah,
weird.
definitely. Like when we were studying art history in my college classes, there's like everybody knows the Statue of David. There's multiple different versions sculpted of the Statue of David, done by
Yeah.
different old masters. So it's like,
Well, people always talk about the old masters. Like they are most of the people we look up to or really know about their fan arts. They did Bible stories commissioned
mhm,
by the church. You know,
mhm.
so a lot of it is always commissioned work and it's commercial. So it gets really really weird in that kind of sense. So you mentioned your school. So what did you go to school for?
I originally I went to for media arts and animation to the Art Institute of Dallas.
Okay. And so you got out of there. Are you? Is that what you really focused on in your school there? Did you branch out a little bit more?
Um, I was kind of forced to branch out when I was
Oh,
there.
okay.
So being a media arts and animation, I expected to be like doing animation, just animation, and maybe a little video editing and stuff like that, and Adobe After Effects and whatnot. But they ended up pushing us to do stuff like 3D modeling and whatnot because they're like, this is what's hiring right now. And so I ended up doing a lot of 3D modeling, and then I ended up being pushed more into like game design and stuff like that. So I had one foot in animation and one foot in the game design classes, and I ended up, surprisingly enough, I ended up really liking um, like the software for the Unreal Engine and the Unity
Okay.
engine. I would spend hours like making blueprints just for the Unreal Engine.
That's cool. Yeah, it's when I was working at a live event company, that was the big thing is being the people they were looking to hire were always kind of 2D, 3D people.
Mm-hmm.
I know the guy I was talking to or hanging out with at the office, he would do 3D modeling and some elements, and then 2D rendering and Photoshop editing with other elements. And so the final piece is a mix between the two. And I feel you can do a lot more these days. Like I have no 3D software experience. I remember when I was a kid, I downloaded Lightroom. No, not Lightroom. Lightwave, I think. And I just downloaded it. I installed it. I opened it. I looked at it. I closed it and I uninstalled it. I was like, nope, this is not for me. So I spent my
Well,
summers playing in Photoshop instead.
well, that was kind of me. When I started out, I didn't expect, like, they didn't really, when I was going on tours for the college, they didn't really show us some of the stuff. They just showed us, like, student renders of, like, characters and environments built in the 3D modeling software and whatnot, like Maya, 3ds Max, and 3ds Maya. And then, but I wasn't expecting us to be doing that. So I had no knowledge of 3D
Oh, okay.
modeling before I entered the school.
It's a good skill to have, I think, especially when you can combine it with the other things.
Oh, yeah, especially nowadays when it comes to like when people are cosplay making, or even now people are doing who do the designer toys and whatnot. A lot of them are turning to like 3D printing, and it's
Yep,
good to know 3D modeling to
to
work
get
it into.
there. Yeah, especially even now with the all the COVID stuff, people are printing I saw some 9-year-olds printing face masks for doctors. I know a couple
Hmm.
of guys were printing like ventilators, and I heard Dyson came up with a ventilator design that they're pumping out right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like about the 3D printing stuff. The fast prototyping. You can just make something, try it out, move on to the next things. I think that's what
Hmm.
Jeremy said yesterday is about. He says a lot of it is about failing quickly and learning from your mistakes fast. That way, the next iteration gets better and better.
Yeah.
So, what software are you? Software did you learn at Art Institute for 3D?
For 3D, we used for mostly 3D modeling space, we used 3ds Max and Maya. Maya, we did a lot of animating, not so much building.
Okay.
For character modeling, I delved a lot into ZBrush, so I would spend hours in ZBrush, just character modeling and sculpting and whatnot. That was like the most fun I've had. And then stuff for like texturing, we ended up can't remember the name of it. We did a lot of texturing in Max where we would unwrap our 3D models and then import them into Photoshop and
Oh
like
yeah. Okay.
so they taught us how to layer textures and whatnot and specular maps and normal maps and stuff like that.
That's cool. Has your schooling affected how you intake media? Because once I did design, once I learned what kerning and leading was, I can't look at movie posters or anything. And once my friend pointed out CG stuff, it just ruins TV for me and movies. I'm like, oh, that's how they do it. Oh, there's a mistake. It drives me nutty.
Yeah, that's exactly how it turned out when I ended up leaving school. When I graduated, nowadays my sister gets annoyed. I have siblings, and my sister gets annoyed because we'll be watching um, like her favorite show is Ruby, and we'll be watching episodes of that, and I'll sit here and I'll be like, hey, that character is sliding on the ground. That's not supposed to happen. Or hey, this is rendered wrong. Or why is that character like why is this lighting different from that character in the background? And it annoys her so much.
Yeah, it just ruins how you see things once you like step behind the curtain and see all how the magic's made.
Yeah.
Because I remember my old workplace, they had a project and they're like, yeah, just beyond the camera view is us barely holding the scene together. Like there's nothing rendered, there's just empty boxes, and like just
Mhm.
beyond the view, it's all fake.
Yeah.
Which
And
is how.
that's another thing when it comes to another thing I learned when it came to like game building and world building in video games is once I learned how scenes were rendered in video games and now like how character movement was rendered through the camera and whatnot and the programming that went into like the creatures chasing you or the environments or what's the environment look like when you bring the camera out of the space. Now when I play a video game, I'm like, I know it's behind that wall. I know it's not behind that wall. I know how that does that. And I'm like, I hate this.
Yeah, it really changes everything. Do you keep up with the gaming scene at all? Like the how the industry works?
I try to. I've been kind of like sticking my head in every once in a while, peeking in and
Okay.
being like, this is what, like, I know unfortunately E3 was canceled this year. Um, but every once in a while I'll be like, because I have some friends who, well, my professor worked for id Software, one of mine's
Oh, okay.
did, and he was talking, he would talk and update us constantly, but I personally haven't been keeping track of what's going on. Every once in a while, I see a game announcement for like an indie game because I keep
Yeah.
track of all the indie games, and I think that's mostly it.
Okay.
Because
'Cause
I
yeah,
don't.
that's a good scene right now too. Like how the indie market is really kind of blown up. I remember, and honestly, that's how people have gotten on bigger gigs. I remember when I was in school. I think it was Terminal Reality. They made the old remake of the Ghostbuster game a while back for I think the Wii and the PlayStation, things like that, and the
Mhm.
Xbox. They said they'll look at indie games. They look at the little games that you made and the and their applicants make. It's like, all right, cool. You can work on a team. You can finish a project. Yeah, these are like we can see because this is such a small team. You can see where the responsibilities are, and more than likely that person did that part of it because if you're in a big AAA thing, you're a hand in you're a cog in a big machine of a lot of things going on. But on a smaller project, you can kind of see who did what. It's kind of
Mhm.
neat. That's a good place to dip into as well. Oh, especially nowadays, everyone's locked in. We'll see how long we're
Oh
locked
yeah.
in for.
That
Get
It's funny because the other day I had rediscovered like a software I used to play for or play with. It's called RPG Maker.
oh yeah,
It's kind of like a plug and play. You don't really write the scripts yourself. It's all like plug and play. This will do this for you if you put it in the correct space. And I discovered it like 3 days ago, and I spent like 2 days because there's a friend that I talk to, and we come up with stories sometimes.
oh okay.
And I asked her, I said, hey, do you mind if I make this a short game? And she's like, okay. So I spent 2 days building this game and programming it, and I sent it to her. She's like, you did this in 2 days? And I'm like, yeah, I'm bored.
I think like Stardew Valley is a person or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is very small teams these days, which is kind of cool. Yeah, when I got out of school, I didn't have any program behind me. The iPhone just came out, so mobile games, small indie games wasn't really a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the market's really changed a lot since then.
And I believe with a smaller team, there's more creative freedom going on. So a lot can happen, but at the same time, you got to make sure that it doesn't get like too chaotic.
Yeah, I think that's always helpful when you have like a singular leader or singular vision to drive everybody in a certain direction.
Mm-hmm.
Let understanding where to let people flex and what decisions to be made. I had an old boss who was insistent on everything being exactly how he made it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
at the end of the day, if something got moved half an inch, especially on a scale of gigantic space, you don't notice that 5 inches, but that 5 inches can mean a lot in production. And so he
Mm-hmm.
just budge. Like it doesn't matter. That counter is half a foot shorter or half an inch taller. Just let it be and move on. Have
One of
you
my
worked?
professors was the
Hmm?
same way. I said one of my
Uh,
professors was the same way. If you're like maybe an inch or so off on your model, he could see it and he would tell you, "Hey, fix this," and you wouldn't even notice it, but he would.
yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's what gets noticed by the audience, what get noticed by the client. People have their opinion, which I'm learning nowadays. We can test for it, especially for direct marketing that happens every day. So I was like,
Hmm.
all right, you think this works? Let's try new color, and we can look at the metrics and see which color did better or which interface did better. We can just make all these changes,
Hmm.
which is a big thing in the gaming world now. Like, yeah, games come out and all of a sudden there's a 5 gig patch on day zero. It's like, come on, man, this has been crazy. So, what areas or titles or franchises that you love for character design, for monster design?
For months, well, H.R. Geiger is one of them, but I remember the Doom franchise is an awesome franchise for creature and monster design. Mostly because they've got stupid amount of demon designs.
Yeah, they're like the only ones who stick to that genre, like that horror first-person shooter, like that demon kind of look. Like I don't see a lot of other spaces playing where they are.
Yeah. And then there's the one other franchise that I really like is the Evil Within series of games.
Okay,
It's a horror-based game uh, set, but it's interesting because you're put into the headspace of a crazy, almost an insane genius, and you're kind of seeing what he sees, and there's these creatures like designed off of like his mentality.
okay, huh.
So there's just a random character with a safe for a head. People call him. I started calling him Safe Head and whatnot, but like they're random designs. But like the more you play the game, and that's what I liked about it, is you learn why these designs are the way they are.
Oh yeah, that's when it gets really good when everything kind of makes sense for the character. It's just character designs in general, even in movies. I remember
Hmm.
hearing about people trying on their costume for the first time,
Hmm.
and especially for I think it's for Sin City, and the guys like you can see the actor slowly figure out how the character stands, how the character walks, how the character smokes. Like you can
Hmm.
watch this process of them becoming it when they slip on the outfit.
Hmm. And I think
Yes.
that's another thing for the Silent Hill series because those were translated into movies, and so Pyramid Head, the main one of the main guys, is so like iconic. You can basically recognize him from like quite a few feet away. You'll see this big
Yeah.
metal pyramid, and you're like, "Hey, I know that dude." So when they translated that over to the movies, when you see him first in the movies, you immediately like you recognize him right off the bat. This is not just some other monster. I know exactly who this is.
Yeah, that's the big key. I remember someone telling me the idea is you want the character's silhouette to be very recognizable. So all you need to see the outline of it, you know who it is. Kind of like the old Pokemon thing. Who's that Pokemon? You know exactly who that is because of the silhouette.
Yeah.
Those were amazing. So what movies have you seen recently that has some good stuff that you've been following?
Um, I've been watching a lot of Jordan. I don't know if Jordan Peele's horror movies.
Oh,
So
okay.
like Us and Get Out,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
those aren't really like creature based horror movies, but like this like his storytelling is just so I could sit there and watch the movie and not really get bored because I'm constantly wondering what's going on next, what's going to happen next. And some of the twists he puts in his movies are actually pretty like
Mm-hmm.
interesting. They kept me watching through the end.
Yeah, there's a lot of different genres I've been seeing in the horror thing, and more recent ones because yeah, we're not doing a lot of creature features anymore. I guess is what they're called. It's a lot more psychological, a lot more like a mind kind of things, like movies like Parasite. Like there are kind of monsters around, but that's not the main drive of
Focus.
them. Yeah, the main focus. I remember watching a documentary. I think it was on Netflix about the history of horror films, and it relates the different genres that the horror industry genre tapped into through the decades and how it affected, like this is a reflection of this particular politics, this is a reflection of this particular aspect of the American culture, and how it's usually held a mirror to society.
Hmm.
It's kind of neat.
I think there's one movie that really ended up I like ever since I started delving into like the horror genre. Not a lot of stuff like freaks me out too much, but there's a movie I had recently seen called Annihilation,
Okay.
and it's a horror genre movie, and it's just about like this weird thing called the shimmer that suddenly appears out of nowhere, and people go missing when they step into it, and it's encased a certain area, kind of like a dome, and so did it freeze?
No, we're good, I
Oh, my
think.
screen's frozen for some reason.
Oh no.
Oh, but and so it's encased this area, and when people go in, they don't really come out, and so they have to send an investigative team. And there's one scene that freaked me out so much that I would not stop thinking about it for a week. And so you things in this little area become assimilated. So like people, you'll see figures of plants standing around that look like people, but you question, was it the plants that grew into the shape of the people, or did the people turn into plants? So it's a this whole thing, creepy thing going on. And the most disturbing scene I remember is when the group of investigators are caught in this house, and they found out like one of their friends was killed. And the next thing you see is this bear walking up the stairs, and it's assimilated with the person it ate. So you see this bear's exposed skull, and then you see the human skull next to it. And when the
Ah.
bear like walks up to them and starts making noises, it's kind of like a bear growl, but a human screaming at the same time. And it
Ooh.
was so disturbing, and I hated it. It stuck with me for a week.
A lot of people. Have you ever seen bears walk on two legs?
Oh yeah, they're huge.
They're weird. It is kind of like a person, but not.
Hmm.
So I think that's where a lot of like the Sasquatch and the Bigfoot
Yeah.
stuff comes from. Is they're bears walking on 2 feet.
Hmm.
Because because I see it almost looks like they're pretending to be human. Like it's something that's not human actively pretending to be a person, but can't get it quite right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it sounds neat. I have to go check that out at some point if I can.
Hmm.
So much time on my hands these days.
I think that's all of us.
Yeah, luckily I can work from home, so it's been kind of nice. Just keep hustling
Yeah.
along.
Unfortunately, I can't. On my, I wasn't necessarily laid off from my job, but I can't go and work in at the moment. Um,
Yeah.
I think most of my family were not working at the moment because of the whole situation. But
It,
luckily, I've still got shop stuff running, so every once in a while I'll check on the shop and
oh, okay,
whatnot.
that's good. So where can people find you online? Where's the best place?
I post mostly to Instagram.
Okay.
But I'm kind of weaning myself into other places. So like I've recently made a Kofi. I'm trying to get myself on Twitter and whatnot. I have like a really old DeviantArt that I don't use anymore. So I don't think I'm going to touch that anytime soon.
Yeah, DeviantArt's gone. I love the new interface. I think it's cool looking, but I think when the new layout came out, it was a little too late.
Hmm.
You know, especially nowadays, there's so many other places that are kind of have a more professional setup. Like I use Behance because it's an Adobe product. I
Hmm.
know a lot of people use ArtStation, and I know a lot of people looking through ArtStation for gigs and things like that.
Yeah, we use. I have a. It's more of a college profile for ArtStation that I
Okay,
used.
okay, yeah, that's good. I use Twitter like a water cooler because we're all stuck at home. We don't get to talk to any of our coworkers, other creatives. So I just use Twitter as like a hey, I'm working on this, or hey, talk to other people. Hey, that's cool, and just chime in
Yeah.
there on their tweets because they're they're hustling during the day.
Yeah. And it was funny because the other night actually I was contemplating doing a live stream because I started doing more live streams on Instagram for when I just randomly sketch. I'm like, okay, instead of sitting here by myself sketching, I'll just throw the phone on my stand and then do a live stream of drawing. And then the other night, literally around like 9 o'clock at the same time, 6 or 7 artists that I follow on Instagram, everybody went live at the same time to
It's
do some art streams. And I'm like, we are so bored.
Well, the problem is I feel like we don't have events to go to. A lot of us are kind of event based and like to use the events as markers for certain projects or certain releases because that's a dedicated fan base that is going to be there. But everything is canceled until at least May, I think, for now. Uh,
Yeah, that's what
I
I
have a
was
couple.
hearing.
I have a couple of June shows that I'm hoping stay intact, but we'll see what happens.
Well, I know Acon of this whole area of conventions. Acon was canceled.
Yeah,
We got that notification. A-Fest is still on, based on
yeah.
what they've been saying.
Well, that's in like September, August, so there's a bit of time between now and then.
If everything calms down.
Yeah, for real. I've heard some pretty bad projections, so it's anywhere between now and then. It's me either short or long.
Hmm.
Cool, cool. So let's give this a wrap up. People can find you on Instagram mostly. You have a couple more enamel pens in the docket. We'll wait until see all the thing pulls apart.
Hmm.
Cool. So what screen name can they find you on Instagram?
It's called Grimmy Scribbles.
Okay, I'll add links below, down here. Where is it? There we go. Down here, and there's buttons everywhere for everybody to click, notifications, subscriptions, and all that good stuff. Cool. Uh, nice seeing you again. Nice talking to you again. It's been a hot minute. Hope you
Yeah.
guys do well. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Cool. Let me move this window. All right. See you guys later. Bye.
Later.